This podcast contains potentially adult language, adult themes, definitely drinking, and possibly sexual context. Listener discretion is advised. Okay, welcome to Drinking with Authors, the Literary Briefs and Technical Difficulties episode. I am your host, Erica Lance. Or maybe not, it just depends on how my internet continues to behave. My co-host today is...
Mark Muncy from Erie, Florida.
Yes, and our guests are the amazing BB LeClere, who argue over who came first. Anyway,
yes, I'm Bill LeClere.
And Becca LeClere.
And
I'm the first beef.
I'm the first beef. You see how it works.
I think there are betting rights to this. Okay, let's talk about what we're drinking real quick and then get into rapid fire questions. I am drinking Flat Rock Cider Company Ice Spice Baby. And for those that want to have fun with it, they actually have the story of this particular one to the beat of the Ice Ice Baby song, which makes me so happy. It starts with stop, grab a can and listen. Okay, anyway, I'm going to go hug these guys when I meet them in person. Okay, Mark, what are you drinking?
I went up to Atlanta, just outside Atlanta, went to Yamer Farms and got some fresh apple ginger ale straight from the farm. And it is amazing. Oh my gosh.
Sounds amazing. I'm actually jealous. Okay, Old Bee or Pink Bee, whichever one wants to go first. What are you drinking?
Pink Bee, do it.
I've got Bailey's and Butterscotch mixed. It's got a name, but it's a naughty name. And it's
all right. We're not on an adult podcast. You shouldn't say that.
Buttery nipple is what it's called.
There you go.
It's a salted caramel buttery nipple.
That's why I wasn't saying the name. But it's salted, scrumptious salted caramel. Bailey.
Yeah.
So we got a scrumptious
nipple.
Yeah, we got a scrumptious buttered nipple with salt around the rim.
That's from one of your books, Erica.
Yeah, that sounds like from one of my books. It's fine. Okay. Older Bee, come on.
Drinking Butterscotch Schnapps, which is still very good over here on this side of the table, and Captain Morgan in little teeny bottles, because why not? And you
get to stick your pinky out when you're pouring it, so that makes it fancy.
Yes. I call it.
There are a lot less teeny bottles that were on there at the start of the first part of the podcast. So
Did you see him knock them over in the last episode as if he was like in a drunken rage?
Well, this isn't called.
I stole them.
This isn't called Maybe I'll Drink with Authors. Yeah, I've been trying to do my part and everybody else's part as well.
We appreciate that. Okay, so rapid fire question, and we're going to direct this. First answer's got to come from Pink Bee.
Okay.
What is your favorite book of all time?
Harry Potter.
Which one?
Prisoner of Azkaban.
Why?
I like the way the story unfolds. The twist of Sirius not being the one after Harry, and of Scabbers, who we've seen from the first book, being Wormtail / Peter Pettigrew, is just an awesome twist.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Okay. Older Bee, what's yours?
I'm going to go with Hobbit, J.R.R. Tolkien. It was a beautifully written piece of work. It was an epic adventure, and I really enjoyed the ride.
Very cool. Then you get the follow-up question first. What is the least favorite book you've ever read?
That was written by J.R.R. Tolkien, the Silmarillion, whatever you call it. It was difficult to plow through, and it was all written in this almost biblical text. And I'm like, when are they going to get to the actual story? And I actually bailed on that. So
yeah, it doesn't get to a story. Jen, who sometimes hosts this podcast with me, is a PhD in English literature and teaches Tolkien. And that's exactly what the Silmarillion was a Bible kind of thing for the book.
Yeah, and even as a Bible, for my take, it didn't work. I was raised in a very religious environment, and I read all of that, but it still didn't. The cohesiveness wasn't there for me.
Okay, Pink Bee, what is the worst book?
I have been stewing over this since you asked him. I don't have one. I am a confessed bibliophile. I love reading. I always had. excuse me, always have. And even
So
if
there's
I,
no book you ever just went, nope.
no, not that I can recall. I've always read a book cover to cover if I, picked it up to read it. I mean, I own a bunch of books that I haven't yet read, but they are going to be read eventually. These are not my books. These are mom and dad's books. My books would not fit in the frame. And every book I've ever picked up, from Tangerine that I had to read for school to a book that my grandmother wrote that was never published. I love them all in their own ways.
Yeah, my mom was a big inspiration to me to become a writer. But anyway.
That's brilliant.
That's amazing.
Okay, so let's
Runs in the
talk
family.
about you said that you were a bigger movie fan than a book fan, which you can get hate mail from people on this podcast for saying that, but
Sorry.
I'm just
Books
kidding.
come from-
I
movies
get
come
the
from
hate.
books.
I get the hate mail. It's fine. I'm good. No, just
Movies
kidding. I
come from
actually
books.
haven't gotten hate mail. I keep saying
No,
things,
not
like
yet.
waiting, and I'm like, okay, maybe not. Maybe
I'll send you
maybe I
one if you.
I was going to say the same thing.
have the coolest fans in the world. That's all I'm going to say that listen to this
There you go.
podcast.
Yeah.
So what book to movie did you absolutely love there, Older B?
Well, you know what? That's going to go back to Harry Potter. That first book to the first movie was so well done that, I mean, every point. Now, I will say, to come back to the Lord of the Rings series, that first movie to the first book of the Lord of the Rings was so well done. The scene where the river rises up his horses and things like that, beautifully done. But the same thing happened in Harry Potter. I like it when they hold true to the book
As
and
much as possible.
as much as possible. And I realize that some things aren't going to fit, but I love when they take the imagery that was in my pickled brain and they put it on the screen and it works. I'm like, wow, that is exactly what I was hoping it would be. And those two really did the great job for me.
Okay, Pink B, what about you?
The Martian. I went out and I happened to get the book right before the movie was released. I saw it at, I think, BJ's on one of their big book tables. I was like, well, that looks interesting. So I picked it up, loved the book. It was hilarious. The audiobook, if anybody ever gets a chance to listen to it, is absolutely hilarious. Best audiobook on the planet,
Yeah.
bar none. Hilariously done. And the movie was so well done to translate from a book about logs being entered manually, like via keyboard, to a movie about logs being entered visually via camera. And it worked so well, and it was so hilarious. And Matt Damon did a beautiful job as Mark Watney. And it's my favorite movie or book to movie adaptation that I've ever seen, even with Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter out there.
I want to make a point, since we're talking about authors and we are authors and everything like that, that whenever there's a great line, why does the actor is the only one to get credit, but not the writer? What's up with that? You know?
No. There's a great scene in The Boys in the first season, and they're in a support group because they these guys have had bad things happen to them because the superheroes have treated them like dirt. And the one guy has had a certain part of his anatomy frozen off because he had sex with the superhero who freezes things. And he was like, the whole reason I went with her was because I was the writer of her movie and she cared. And who wants to sleep with the writer? Who wants to sleep with the writer?
Perfect.
No, it's
I
true.
love that.
But the producers know that what's interesting about it is the producers of movies know exactly who the important part of movies is.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys told me the ones you like. Let's go the opposite direction for ones that you were like, this should never have happened. So what book to movie or TV show were you like, this is garbage?
Aragon.
Oh,
I love what's his name? Jeremy
Chris
Irons.
Bailey?
I love his
Oh.
little monologue about the chickens. That was hilarious. The rest of the movie was shit.
Okay.
Jeremy Irons can
Okay.
save anything. He
What
saved the
about you,
Dungeons and
Older
Dragons
B?
movie.
Yeah, my brain's, can you smell the smoke? I'm working on this one.
I'm curious because you mentioned the book being The Hobbit, what you thought of what Peter Jackson did. Because I have my own opinions on what Peter Jackson did, but
I thought Peter Jackson that's a good point, actually, and that saves me from this question, which is tough. Peter Jackson did a great job with The Hobbit. There are some previous attempts at bringing The Hobbit to speak to the screen, which were exceptionally lame and very childish. And I thought this is a more universal appeal story than what you guys are putting out there. So as a cheap cop-out, I'm going to go with that because I can't think of a better example at the moment of a book that should have gone better to movie. I'm sure I will once some of the rum wears off.
that's entirely possible. Yes. Yes. Mark, question?
All right, so you said you guys were, you like Dungeons and Dragons. Have you played any other games that you might have found inspiration from?
Ooh. Yeah, inspiration for our book, I'm not sure.
Oregon Trail.
Oregon Trail's a good one. There was
Oh my God, dysentery. We all die of
Yes.
dysentery. That's the story of Oregon Trail.
Yeah, Talisman, all right,
Yes.
which is a similar story, a similar game to Dungeons and Dragons, but it's a card-based game. That's a great inspirational game because you've got a character and he's going through these adventures, and that's a cool thing. So
Okay,
Talisman.
Pink Bee. What about you?
World of Warcraft.
Oh,
The mission, from A to B to C to go, so on and so forth. It really gives you that side quest type setup where you have these points that you have to get to, but in between there's other stuff you can do, and it makes for an easy story to tell, so to speak. And the other one is kind of silly and even more surprising than World of Warcraft for me at least. Stardew Valley, of all the Bizarro games to think of as inspiration. I actually started writing a fanfic about Stardew Valley where it was a person from our world going through all this.
Nice.
She gets a letter from her grandfather that she kept in her desk for X amount of years. And then she finally decides to open it, and it's like, how the hell is this guy still here? Why does this whole town was waiting for me to show up? What the, and it's kind of a dystopian Stepford Wives type situation. But that gave me a lot of inspiration for the book. So
Yeah.
very
Stardew Valley.
cool.
Very nice.
Played a lot
Okay.
of World of Warcraft and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Stardew Valley for him.
what is your favorite character to play in Dungeons and Dragons, Older B?
Archer, all the way. I'm always an archer or a hunter.
What about you, Older B?
I'm going to divert over to World of Warcraft because it's easier for a lot of people to relate to because you've got the set characters, and I would be either the archer, which is the hunter, or the paladin, and I would be the
You'd
tank
be
or
lawful good? I fucking hate paladins in games.
Yeah, that's
I
why we're
fucking
here.
hate paladins
That's
in
why
games.
we're here. We're gonna do right, and we're gonna do the right thing. Ha ha! Fuck you.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Anybody shows up in a D&D game, there's like a paladin, I'm like, this is gonna end badly.
My first character ever in D&D, my little brother ran the thing, and he was just showing me how the whole thing worked. And my first character was, his name was PHUK, and his weapon was called Thornblade. And so he was a paladin with a really twisted mind, and that's what he was.
What's wrong with that?
That sounds pretty epic. Okay, Mark.
Oh, for me, I always play some usually a wizard or an illusionist, somebody, a trickster type character that is not as good as he says he is. I always like playing the
Yeah.
smart ass.
Love that.
It's like, oh, I'll cast this and save the day, and then he always winds up casting something, bumbling wizard, but actually really knows what he's doing. That's a classic.
Yeah, I love that. One of my favorite characters ever was a dwarf called Thunderstump Oakenshield, and his ego was his definite largest characteristic, and everything else kind of followed after that.
I love dwarf names. I had a character for a while named Barsufia Stinkbottom.
Nice.
Beautiful.
That's pretty epic. I play rogues.
Love that.
Nice.
The wife plays rogues.
Yeah, I play rogues because they're the most badass, even in World of Warcraft, if done correctly.
Yes.
They do more damage than all the mages and stuff like that if you line them up.
Yeah. But you got to play them just right, and that's the fun of it. Yeah.
All right.
No,
So
it's
speaking
true.
of the wife, how proud is she of you two writing your own book?
Very.
Oh, we're getting the
giving us
thumbs up from the
thumbs
other room. Yeah, she is.
There we
proud.
go.
It's
the
off
follow-through.
screen with cue cards, helping them get
Yeah.
through the questions. People don't know that.
She's
So
sweeping up the bottles that
Yes.
are landing on the floor.
yes, and Mark's lizard Claudius is off screen holding up little cue cards.
He's keeping me awake. This is past my bedtime. Thanks,
So
Claudius.
what do you guys find is your little you kind of said this earlier, Olderby, that you just sort of write a stream of things that may or may not have punctuation or spelling errors in them and then send it. Do you feel like that's your sort of Achilles heel when writing, is that you just go and don't stop? What is your Achilles heel in writing?
Well, it would be the mechanics of it. All right. I think my strength is my visualization, where I've got a very strong picture of the person in the situation and what he's going to go through and where his mind is as he goes through that. But to get the mechanics of getting him, yeah,
There
the
you go.
mechanics of getting him through that situation, it is sometimes.
For those of you who haven't watched the video portion, you need to watch.
You gotta watch the video portion of this because that was epic. I like that. No, I thought he was doing something to the table.
No, it's like it. It's like it.
Totally
my
called out on
goodness.
that. Beautiful.
What about you, Pink Bee?
The tangents I will go off on. I will, be trying to write something and I'll need to research a small, something like a fountain pen and when it was invented, or what Colt what Samuel Colt's first gun was, which was not the Peacemaker. It was a gun called the Patterson that almost bankrupted him.
I love those
going
things.
off on, I had to go and research that, and then in researching that, I will find these tangents that I will go off on, and 2 or 3 hours will have passed, and suddenly I'm like, oh yeah, I was writing, and now I'm off reading about World War III possibilities and what the weapons will be like therein.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oops. So much for that.
And just so you know, most researchers suffer from that. Like,
Yeah.
that is part of the reason I intentionally don't go down the research rabbit hole, because you can go down the rabbit hole and then get stuck, and then you're not even in Wonderland anymore. You're somewhere else.
Narnia. Yeah.
Pan's Labyrinth, and you're like, how the hell did I get here?
That's why my next book is about West Virginia, Kentucky, and Ohio instead of Florida, because I was researching a Florida thing and it turned into that. But your guys' research, I wanted to ask a question since you are big on research. The Native Americans in this, you are very well portrayed in there. How did you research writing those?
Well,
what we wanted was Native American input. We would have absolutely adored to find somebody that we could talk to that was Native American, lived on a reservation, or had the roots of
grown up with the culture
of the Native American lifestyle and what their history was, to be able to bounce off ideas off of them, show them what we had written, and see, and basically say, here it is, take a red pen to it, tell us what we need to change, and we will change it.
Serious reverence for the Native American culture and what has been lost. And yeah, there's some guilt because I'm white and all like that. I didn't do it. My father didn't do it. His father, but it's still like a culture that because we're here, we lost that. And we don't want to lose that.
And
So
in our research, we discovered a lot of the things that they do in their culture that aren't as widely known. Like, you hear about the beads, the bracelets, the blankets and such and so forth, the dancing around the campfires and what have you. But to actually do the in-depth research and find out what the culture was like, it's so beautifully fascinating about the way of life that they had and that they try to maintain as much
so
as
civilized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as much as,
They had their own police force. They had their own government. They had the best civilization on the planet until
white man came.
Well, not necessarily just white men, not on purpose. The first white men come over and disease.
Yes.
90% of the population. So when the next white men came over, it was an empty continent.
Yeah.
Hey, look at all this.
Yeah, this is
They had
ours
no
now.
idea.
There's
Nobody
here.
had any idea. Germ theory wasn't invented or discovered until much later. So this is part of the medical research and the Native American research where it all this fuses together, and what's part of the fascination of doing the research for the book.
It's one of the reasons we wanted one of our main characters to be Native American, so that we could represent that culture as well as we were able with who we are.
Yeah.
Well, it got very serious very quickly. I know.
Sorry, I had to ask you a question.
Mark, I'm just saying, we
I
were
derailed
talking
it.
about
Not my fault.
hobbitses a little moment ago.
All right,
and
what's your
now it got-
favorite dick joke? No, sorry.
No dick jokes. So my question for you though is, you did all this research. Did you create a world Bible?
It was already there.
Yeah.
It was already there.
Our book is so deep rooted in it, true history and real historical fact. Is we put as much truth into the book as we could while still maintaining a historical fiction.
I know, but you went down to figure out the first gun and stuff. Did you keep track of all this little stuff that you
Yes.
discovered?
On our
Okay.
website, bbleclere.com, there is a page that is reference and research. And the Colt Patterson is on there, as well as alchemy, not alchemy, medicine of the time, where you take off a limb. What's the word? Amputation tools. Yeah, you can tell that it's starting to affect me now.
This is fun. This is why we do this part at the end. Is so that he's sitting there pointing at the flying ship and you're talking about amputation. It's
there
great.
was a guy named Rufus Porter, and Rufus Porter invented an airship
very similar to that one
in this time period, and he was in just north of Washington at that time, at that date, trying to get his airship in the World's Fair. But because of various economic and weather problems, it didn't happen, according to history. According to us,
his airship was, requisitioned for other purposes.
That is
other
awesome.
things on our research that we found out that were fascinating. Ketchup was a medicine, a kind of a cure-all. If you're feeling poorly, take ketchup. Morphine was actually called morphium in the day, and was used as a sedative, but it was not intravenously applied. It was drunk. You would drink it.
The hand. All right. There was a character in our book who loses a hand, and
lopped off at the
remember, we're
the elbow.
Steampunk versus zombies. We needed a steampunk answer. So in the 1300s, the 14th century, there was a knight who lost his hand, who had a mechanical hand attached, and you could turn dials or turn screws and stuff, and he could hold a sword and fight in battle, and he could hold a pen and write. And so we put that in the book. So that was part of the fascination, where we go into the research and we find these things and said, wow, we'll put that in, and the next chapter is written because it's already there.
Because we found this cool thing and wanted to include it.
Detroit in 1834, which is one of the major reasons we moved the time frame, lost 900 people in 1 month.
They say it was the cholera.
We say it was something more exciting.
That's very cool. Very cool. Okay, Mark, I'm going to let you have the last question. Don't make it a downer question again, dude.
All right, all right. So if you could cast the lead characters from your movie, of the movie of your book, or the Netflix series, who would you cast? And don't say Harry Potter.
Adam Savage.
As Rufus Porter.
Adam Savage would be Rufus Porter in a heartbeat.
The
If
airship
we
guy.
could get him to do it, it would be perfect.
And as
He built it
Sergeant
too.
Chambers, all right, one of the heroes, I would want one of the Chris's. All right.
Chris Hemsworth, Chris Pratt,
Captain
I-
America.
Captain America.
Chris Captain America. What was his last name? Evans.
Evans, Chris Evans.
Right.
One of those guys.
As Nectosha, I'd want to get an actual Native American,
Yes.
indigenous American to play Nectosha, who is going to be the heartthrob of the story.
Yeah, he would be.
So
He is everybody's favorite. We did not intend to write him as the boy hero that he turned into, but that's what he is, and everybody.
I love it when characters take their own life up and run with it and become something more than you thought they were going to be. But sometimes, as my mother said, sometimes the characters write the story themselves.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to let them do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very true. Okay, guys. So let's do the shameless self-promotion plug. What is the name of your first book?
Oops.
Don't break everything in the process.
Yeah.
The Secret War of 1834 by B.B. LeClere. I'm the first B.
I'm the first B.
Okay. Oh, this is
And,
going to be the epic argument forever. And the
Yeah.
sequel that is coming out and is going to be released at MegaCon Orlando in May, correct?
Hopefully,
Yes.
There's no
It's-
hopefully. You've now committed to
It's
it.
gonna
got
be
to do it. Yes.
It's going to be the Secret War, something more. I don't know. We're going to figure out a title. We keep debating. We keep bashing our heads against the same brick wall.
This
but-
this was called
You should-
Zombies.
you should
versus
let the
Steampunk,
first B
almost
guess.
up into
Yeah.
publication.
We might call it.
So-
We might call it. Rise of Zombies, Rise of Steampunk. We might call it. The Secret Conflict of 1836. I don't know, but we'll come up with it. And,
Oh,
and
I have no doubt, and I have no doubt you will be dressed as the characters from it. So
Yes.
it should be wonderful.
That's
And if
the fun.
anybody gets an opportunity, you guys, social media, where do people find you? We didn't ask that before. What is going on?
BBLeClere.com.
BBLeClere.com is our website. We also have a website under Secret War of 1834, but it kind of leads you to the BB LeClere website. We do have a Facebook presence. It's not as strong as we would like. We're working on that. And one of the things that we're learning is the business of books, the business of being a writer. And that's a tough thing. Writing a book is cool. The business of being a book writer or an author is a whole nother thing. It's cool, but there's a lot to learn.
There is a lot to learn. I agree.
A lot more than
1000%.
just typing out words.
Yep, writing is hard. Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast with us today. You guys have been so much fun, really. It's
was
been
great.
awesome.
Thank you.
Very
Thank you so
cool.
much for having us.
Absolutely. I'm so
Well,
glad
fun.
Mark turned
It's
you
great
on
to
to
be
the
had.
podcast. This is like a circle of life happening right now. So guys, this has been Drinking with Authors, the literary briefs edition. I've been your host, Erica Lance. My co-host today has been
Mark Muncy from @Erie, Florida.
Wonderbar, and our amazing guests have been B and B LeClere. They will have an epic battle over which B comes first, but they've both been amazing. Thank you so much, and guys, we will see you next time.
I hope so. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
You guys
You're
are awesome.
welcome.